All right. Hey, what's on, guys? We're a little bit behind the schedule here, but that's fine. We're here now, and that's what's important. You guys all remember Carl, don't you?
Oh, hi. I'm just eating my lunch while we're going live here.
That's all good. So,
do you think I kind of hit the Bloody Mary on the head today?
Ooh. Ah, damn it. Here, start your Bloody Mary. I totally forgot to do the damn thing. I built this son of a bitch an intro, and I forgot to play the stupid thing to set the tone. There we go. A little slow, but we get there. I still don't get, man.
You don't get what?
Caesars.
Well, for me, it's more that I can't get clamato juice, but I think the thing with the Bloody Mary, it's like, since it's not an exact recipe, at least not the way I do it.
Yeah.
It's always kind of like getting that nice balance between like the tomato juice, the pepper, the celery salt, and the Worcestershire, and getting enough heat from the Tabasco, because you're going to need that heat / vinegary thing from the Tabasco.
Yeah.
And I think I nailed that on the head today.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, that's the beauty about both of those. As long as you have like the main flavor notes. Like I remember somebody made a Caesar. It was absolutely delicious. He called it like a Japanese style Caesar. He used wasabi instead of like the spice. And he used, what was the other thing? That stupid, rice wine vinegar instead of like for the sour notes there. And then he used sesame seeds instead of the celery stick. I don't know. It's just as long as you get something sour, something spicy, and a little bit of savory in there, you're pretty much good to go.
Shit, I was actually thinking about doing that, because when I was getting the stuff out to make the drink out of my cabinet, I was like, I have sesame seeds, I have rice wine vinegar, but I don't have any wasabi, though. That's kind of the issue. Could probably go without it, though, and just use like the normal salt and pepper.
I don't see why you couldn't. That's just it, right? Because it's just as long as you get those main notes. And there was like a Western version too, which is used horseradish. And then obviously the same stuff there. And I've seen ones that just use Tabasco. So, I mean, you're essentially drinking Caesars because you're hungover from the night before and you need some like vegetables and stuff. So
I thought it would work really well with the sandwich I made. So that was just kind of like, normally I'll sit down like an hour before the show and I'll make some eggs, have some toast with it and do like a proper breakfast / lunch. Because I don't do breakfast. Like I do coffee and water for breakfast every day, regardless. That's like always the note. Except the only exception is if I actually went sport drinking. At that point, I'll eat something a little bit more, just to soak up some of that alcohol.
Yeah, we're pretty simple here too. At best, we sometimes will just throw like a piece of toast or two in the broiler, add some butter to it, and that's our breakfast along with a coffee. Which I don't know, is that alpha? Aren't we supposed to have like 12 eggs? I'll do that in the weekends, but
well, the thing is, I'm not a huge breakfast guy. I've never been, and I think like you're either a breakfast person or you're not.
Right? Yeah, I could take it or leave it. It really depends. Breakfast or lunch, I'll usually skip one but have the other.
Yeah, usually I just break the fast. I'll eat my dinner like 6-7 o'clock at night, and then I'll just fast until like lunch the next day.
Yeah, or as we all call it, just eat when I'm hungry and not when I'm not hungry. I guess here, I'll bring it to the topic here. Here's the funny thing. I was talking about this with you offline, and I was thinking, I can tell if my girl is hungry because she gets cranky. I call it hangry. She's kind of fully self-aware of it now. She just says I'm hangry in like a Feed Me Seymour thing from that Plant movie with Rick Moranis. And I'm realizing, like, she's kind of giving me the little Facebook 411 on all of her friends from high school and that. And I'm amazed how angry girls are all the time, how bad their moods are, relationships are not. And then I'm wondering how much of an effect that has on their boyfriends or husbands.
You do notice, but it's not just the girlfriend though. Like we'll get back on the topic, but you can notice the same thing if you're in a project team and a couple of them are always in a bad mood. That's really going to fuck you up too. And I think it's kind of a social species thing where you're kind of supposed to take on the moods of the people around you to somehow further social cohesion or something.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There's the guys that are neutral. There's the guys that are happy, but the guys that are miserable seem to overpower it. Like, I've always wondered, is it a frame thing? Is it like how deer, as soon as one deer spooks, they all spook because they're like better safe than sorry? Is that how anger works on this one? I'm sure there's research, but I wouldn't even know where to start looking for that.
Probably psychology, but I wouldn't call what they do research so much.
Well, yeah, funny topic on that. So I think you saw the article Rule Zero Dad sent out about that research they did in the sphere, and I thought it'd be a great topic for Rule Zero. And then you rightfully pointed out that the research is absolute garbage.
Yeah, well, it's my main issue with that kind of research is that if you have a sample size that small, you're based it off, qualitative research, and you have problems starting there, and then you have like the sampling method that was very unclear.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like you always have that issue when you have like undergrads who are doing some kind of research. Oh, they're always going to pick like their friends or their fellow students to be like the subjects.
Yeah, because they don't have resources to get bigger groups.
Yeah, and it's very easy just to ask your buddies, hey, can I ask you 4 questions? It's for my degree shit.
One thing too, I just realized for you guys, the audience, they might not know the difference between qual and quant. When you were talking about that earlier, the quantitative versus the qualitative research.
Quantitative is numbers and qualitative is bullshit.
That's actually very succinct.
Well, not to go like there is some use for qualitative research. Like you can use it effectively in market research, business research to some extent. But you kind of need to have some kind of numbers in there, in my opinion, because you're kind of checking when you're doing like verification research.
Right.
You need to know, all the different parameters, and you also need to be able to see, okay, how far off are our results? It's very hard if the results of one study was in the form of just words, and the results of another study was also in the form of just words.
Yeah. Well, I thought the whole thing with qualitative research was that you just wanted to see if you're like kind of on the right track. You don't need like specificity in the results. You just need to know a general direction, or maybe you're asking questions because you don't even know where to start. And it kind of like usually I always assume that all qual research should end off with findings are this, but more research is required to, substantiate it. Basically the introduction to actual research.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. If you're not really sure what the hell you're supposed to be researching or what variables you're supposed to pick, then you can use qualitative research to figure that out, to lay the groundwork for a quantitative study later. Or if you've done like a huge quantitative study, then you might use qualitative to look into things. Let's say take Census Canada or something.
Mm-hmm.
It goes around figuring out like what's the average height of an average Canadian male. Okay, so you do that research and you figure out, I think it's about 5'9" or 5'10".
5'10".
Then you can start looking into different groups and seeing, okay, how come this group is shorter than this group based on genetic factors? So you can look at social factors and you can try to dig those out.
Oh, I get it. So the reasons behind the numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Puma Red put it very well here. Qualitative research can add good color commentary when you need to present your quantitative research. And he's correct in that.
Look at that. Almost like that's a parallel to what we're talking about here, where you can sit in front of a camera, do your PowerPoint presentation on how all whammon is bad, but add a couple stories to it and some reasonings, and it makes more sense.
Yeah.
All right. So here's
a good thing always have to have a good narrative with the numbers, because narratives stick, numbers don't.
Exactly. Here's the thing too. So back on this one, I saw Sabina. She's our local in real life girl, definitely not a trap. What's the cause of girls' bad mood? To which my response, and I'm pretty sure this is going to hold up. This is about as good as qual as it gets. I can't think of an F word to mean sleep. So I couldn't quite make it a 3 Fs thing. But in my experience, every bad mood I've ever seen from a girl is she's missing one of these 3 things: food, sex, or sleep.
I can kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's true for us too, though, for the most part. Like, it's one of those. Well, you do have like work things.
Yeah.
That will tend to get them riled up.
Yeah, like competitive stuff.
But that's the kind of natural, because then automatically know the cause of it. Like if she comes home and she's on fire and she's bitching about work, You know, some bitch at work pissed her off.
Well, not necessarily though. I've seen this constantly, like with my girl. She'll get in a fight with her mom, but she knows when she calls her mom, she's going to get into a fight. So if she's already in a sour mood, she kind of knows like that's where I go to get that dopamine fix for my sour mood. It reminds me of like, it was a Kids in the Hall sketch. I don't know if you're a fan of Kids in the Hall, but it was a couple, and you know that David Foley, I think, played the chick on that one, and she's just yelling at his husband, at her husband, or his, yelling at his husband, and then he gets in a bad mood too, and then she laughs like they were playing tag with the bad mood, and I'm like, damn, that one still resonates like 30 years later.
I do kind of, I agree with that statement there, that I think girls sometimes will go and specifically try and get themselves in a certain mood just to get that little dopamine hit or whatever.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they'll fake a bad mood just to shit test you.
That's true. That's what I was wondering with that. I know I keep going back to this trough. Remember Abu American's thing where one of his wives was starting some shit, and so he smashed the tablet, teach her a lesson?
No, I don't remember that one.
Oh, yeah. He just did something like when girls misbehave, you got to punish them. He basically broke her iPhone because she was starting some shit. I don't know the details of it. I don't really care. But I thought like that's great. So, and my first thought is this seems like the kind of girl who was just bored and wanted a dopamine hit. So she acted bratty. And then he acted like, you know, a rageaholic, and she gets her dopamine fix. Now he's got to buy a new iPhone. I'm like, I think there's cheaper ways to get that fix. But who am I to say? Coke is much cheaper than phones, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm just using the, what's it called? You have positive reinforcement, you have negative reinforcement, and you have something in the middle there. Positive reinforcement is when you say something positive. Negative is when you punish them. And then you have the thing in the middle where you don't react to it.
Oh,
no, it's not Pavlovian. It's some kind of, I don't remember it specifically. I wrote about it in an essay at some point about like psychological reinforcement. It's kind of the Skinner thing.
Yeah. So how does the non-reaction work? Because for girls, I find attention is huge. Like my girl will flat out ask me, like, I need attention right now. And I can only imagine that it's almost a negative reinforcement if I don't give any reaction.
Well, in this case, for instance, she was giving me the silent treatment.
Oh, nice.
And, you know,
you read 5 books in that time and you enjoyed yourself.
Well, for me, it was more like the whole thing. Like when I get the silent treatment, you can do 3 things. You can either just ignore that you're getting it. You can try and figure out why she's giving you the silent treatment, or you can just ignore that you're getting the silent treatment, kind of. And my thing is just, I'll just ask like completely calmly, you know, what are you pissed about? And because that just strips that entire interaction of the need of that dopamine hit.
Right. Yeah, it gets rid of all the theater, the pretense.
Because like I just like I can play those games for fun occasionally. Like you piss her off on purpose because you can tell she needs it, or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But like I'm a very low drama guy, so any girl that creates a ton of drama is just going to get ejected sooner or later. And I figure if you ignore her when she's trying to do those hits, if she escalates to get it more, that is a signal of high drama. If she kind of de-escalates or she starts talking about something, then it shows she has the skills to actually handle that type of situation.
But can she actually articulate it? Because I've seen, like with mine, tons of times where it'll be a fight and it's not about the thing we're fighting about, or it's not about the thing that she's like angry about. It's always some peripheral issue. Like if she hadn't had a good night's sleep, he'll have a fight over something. I'm like, what's wrong? I get a laundry list, and I can already tell. Like, you know how some things, like this is like a 1 out of 10 problem, and you're acting like it's an 8 out of 10. So it's clearly not about that. Although I guess you're smart enough to kind of read between the lines on these things anyway. So.
Yeah, just for me, it's like I'm not going to invest a ton of shit. And for me, like, I just think maintaining a relationship is the woman's job. It's not my job.
Yeah, 100%.
So why am I supposed to put in a fuck ton of work for relationship management? That's her job. If she needs to get a dopamine hit or she needs some drama, she can go talk to her fucking family. There's plenty of it.
I'm the same as you. I don't mind a little bit. But sometimes just shutting it down is my big thing. It's like, look, this isn't going to be a fight. That's it. And that's it. Then the rest is just going out to find something to do. She'll calm down. Kind of made the rule. Like if one of us goes to the other room to cool off, like leave them be. They'll come out when they're ready and just wait. But I was thinking back to your thing about the reinforcement. And I think for some girls that double down on the high drama thing, it's not, and I hate to just say it's like biological. I think it's their hormones and that, but I mean, it kind of is. But a lot of guys train for it. Like, for example, if they're inconsistent with how they deal with a girl's emotions. So I always use my dog as the example on that one, where he can just barely jump up and reach the first like 3 inches into the counter. So if I leave food closer than that, he can swipe it down and eat it. Ate a loaf of bread once. So then like the next 100 days, he's constantly looking on the counter for something when I'm not there. And if 1 out of like 100 times I forget and leave like a cookie there or something, he'll sneak that down. But it's only because I'm not 100% on point all the time. And if I were to start doing that again and like be adamant about it, he would probably get worse before he gets better, because they're just used to a certain stimulus response and that they're not getting it anymore. They'll double down on their behavior thinking they're just not working hard enough. Same as like beta males. You know how when the wife stops being affectionate to them, the first thing they do is start doubling down on being extra affectionate and making it worse.
Oh yeah, I was going to say like about your dog. Like a buddy of mine had one of those smaller dogs, and he could barely get up on the counter. At one point, he was tempering, one of those dry age steaks. Like
yeah. Oh no!
His dog jumps up and snatches a steak and runs off with it.
Oh no! Was he that like? Did he know he was doing it, or was this one of those things like when he was sleeping, the dog went up to scavenge?
No, I think he just put this, like, you never cook cold steak, right? So he took the steak out of the fridge and he put it on the kitchen counter to kind of temper it up before he was going to cook it. Then he went and did some other shit, I guess, and the dog just ran up and just snatched that steak and ran off.
Oh, damn. Oh, I have been mad. My dog took a crepe once because I went to go answer the doorbell and didn't think. As soon as I turned my back, he grabbed it. And then I turned back around. I saw he had blueberry on his cheek. I chased him around the house. I was going to kill his 13-pound ass. I can only imagine a dry aged steak, because that's like you invest. What are some people? They do like a month, don't they, for their dry age?
I think he just bought it. I don't think he dry aged it himself.
Oh, not as bad, but I can imagine those guys that like seriously do like the dry. They get the special little fan in the fridge just to do it properly. And then, 3 weeks of waiting, and now it's here. And dog's just like, yoink.
Well, with the crepe, I wouldn't care so much because you always have more flour and more sugar and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, imagine that snatching your dinner and just running off with it when you've been like looking forward to that fucking steak all day at work.
Dude, I'm still mad about that crepe, and that was like 6 years ago. I can only imagine. Oh, here's a good one.
We had a question. Why do you tolerate the silent treatment? It's a manipulative technique of narcissism. Silent treatment is all women use it at some point.
Yeah.
But it's not about tolerating the silent treatment. I mean, the other ones, if your girl is acting out, she's starting a fight, she's acting as if she wants attention, those are things you kind of have to have an acceptance for to some degree, because that's just women being women.
Yeah.
But with the silent treatment, I find like the only way to, and it's not like, if it's like the complete silent treatment when she doesn't answer you at all, that's different from I'm just going to use the minimum amount of words while still answering and being respectful. There's a line between those. But most of the time, that's one of those techniques where if you want some peace and quiet, great. If you want to but if she keeps doing it over days, you kind of have to call it out. And I just like to call out things sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, and that's the other thing. So Elrin Sabag here, he's like, so just leave her. And this is the whole reason that the married red pill is even a thing, because next is always like, that's the first and foremost answer. It's been useful for middle-aged housewives to single guys, world out. But that's the problem. Once you invest in a girl, leaving is not just a matter of packing your bag and going. There's always something. Like if you buy real estate together, you have to sell the house. There's a logistic. There's always some kind of extra pain to it that creates a buffer that you kind of opt into, an extra little bit of bullshit. Like, for example, with your girl, you could just walk away, block her on things, and that's fine. With mine, we have to do separations. We got to pick which dogs we love the most, kind of thing. Like so while leaving is a great solution, I find it's too much of like a cudgel. Sometimes there's more refined answers. Maybe you don't have to leave. You just learn to deal with a girl's silent treatment by, not reacting to it, not being reactive, or just learning that the silent treatment's a great thing. If she wants to play that game, she can play it on her own. And if she gets no dopamine from you, eventually she gets tired of it. Or like Carl says, just nuke it.
But I think the silent treatment isn't so much about her getting a dopamine hit, it's seeing how you react to it.
Yeah. Actually, I can buy that.
I think that's more of a, like, you have the attention-seeking silent treatment, where they just want you to actually invest more in them and try and drive the conversation and carry that.
Yeah.
And be more of entertainment. And then you have, like, the negative reinforcement version of the silent treatment where you did something or said something that she does not approve of.
Right.
And I don't think you should really care that much about that last one.
Oh, no, you can't. Well, that's the problem, is that's like a power play. As soon as you care about that one, that puts her as the role of judge, jury, and executioner. You're essentially giving her the power over you in that relationship.
And I personally think that if your better or worse half is doing something that you dislike, you need to actually have a conversation with them about that, rather than trying to be manipulative.
Well, that's just it. I don't think girls know how to be direct about, like, at least most of the time they don't, especially when emotions get involved. So you just have to kind of expect it. But like, unless you're sleeping with dudes, you kind of have to expect that they're not generally going to have the tools to do this unless you teach them how to communicate with you.
Well, from my perspective, like, when you opt into actually having just one chick, and you get the relationship to a degree of where you want something more out of it than what you can get from just having plates.
Yeah.
Then you kind of opt into having a little bit more of extra bullshit, a little bit of extra complications, and having to do a little bit more of that, let's call it service deal that you have to do with a woman. It's kind of like when you can rent a car. Well, let's do property. If you own a house, you have to do the maintenance. You have to call the electrician when something's out. You have to call the plumber. If you rent an apartment, you just call the super and have him fix it, and you don't pay anything.
Right.
So having plates is sort of like renting an apartment, or more like living in hotel rooms, but whatever. And then you have, like, the extra step there is actually buying property. Once you buy property, then you kind of have to do the maintenance work. And it's the same thing with a girl. Once you're actually looking to lock one down, or one locks you down, you just kind of have to do that maintenance work.
Right.
But it's kind of seeing, is that maintenance work worth it compared to, like, the assets you're getting out of it?
That's where we always get those MGTOW fights where, like, no girl is worth it. Juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I take the approach of, it's not my job to tell you if it's worth it or not. It's up to the girl across me to prove that it's worth it. And I think if more guys would just focus on what is valuable in their relationship, they wouldn't have to rely on, idiots online doing PowerPoint presentations about how nobody's worth it. Like, whoever thought, just focus on what's right in front of you. Pay attention, open your eyes and look. And you're right. Yeah. If a girl gives you a ton of BS, but she can suck a hose or suck a golf ball through a garden hose, and she cooks a mean set of dinner, getting some nagging once a week isn't the worst thing in the world. Like, as far as trade-offs go, you got to admit.
Yeah, this is a good one from One Man's Way. What about when she asked me to talk to her more, text more than I do, and she goes cold? Well, dude, she wanted you to text more and talk to her more when she asked you to text you or talk to her more.
Yeah,
it's like, I like to say that I admire women for always knowing what they want. It's just a fucking shame that it changes every 3 seconds.
Yeah, the snapshot. It's a snapshot. It's not longitudinal, or longitude. No, I agree 100%. Dude, there's a reason that Ryan's rule is anytime she says she feels something, just add right now at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Same as, like, I hear that one too. It's I need more attention, not in general, just right now. She's feeling, lonely or insecure or whatever. Or what's another good one? Damn it, I can't think of examples off the top of my head right now of this, when they say something, but it literally means at this exact moment.
Plus, I always find, like, the best way to deal with it is whenever she pisses you off, you just take that anger out on her during sex.
See, that's the part that worries me too. Yes, that's true. But then if the sex is really good, every time she acts cranky, you're priming her to act horrible. So I'm kind of like, you're right. but I'm like, the long-term implications that kind of concern me.
I don't really mind.
Yeah.
Because she's not going to be able, like, I can't remember who did that. I know it was like a plot in some kind of TV show or movie I watched, but a buddy of mine actually did it. Like, whenever his girl was acting nice, he'd give her a chocolate.
I've seen
it. And it took her like 7 months to notice that he was like training her the same way he was training their fucking dog.
That's funny. They did that to a teacher in university too, I remember, where every time he'd walk to one side of the class, they'd all pay more attention and then be disinterested when he walked to another. And then by the end of the semester, they had him standing in the back corner of the thing giving his lectures or something like that. And they let him on the experiment at the end.
Oh, that's brilliant, then.
But yeah, totally. One man's way, 100%. Don't, as a general rule, don't take anything your girl says seriously at all. When she tells you stuff like this, like, you know, put it in the memory bank. Maybe there's a serious issue. Maybe there's not, but that's up to you to figure out. But in general, stuff like this is what agree and amplify are built for. You should talk to you more. She texts more. You just say some, you know, cocky, funny thing like I would, but I'm texting somebody else right now. I'm make it wittier than that, obviously.
I would, but you're the only girl who doesn't send me nudes.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. That's why you're the stand-up comedian and I'm not. And I'm only the lowly improv actor in like a C-class studio.
Oh, you're a great straight man, though.
The straight man with
we should take this shit on the road like Laurel and Hardy 2.0.
Dude, I would love that. The shirt in the face. You just go onto stage with your purge mask and I come out there with that. Somebody was making fun. I guess there's this like ducky shirt around that's making the rounds right now that I kind of want now just because it looks so gaudy.
Oh, shit.
All right. First off, Big Bang Theory is a banned term in this space. We only talk about actual funny things here, Yuri. Thanks for the reference, though.
Yeah, it might have been. I don't know. I just know that I know a guy who actually did that to his girl. It took her ages to catch on, so I don't think she'll actually catch on to the fact that whenever she's pissed me off, she gets better sex.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. All right. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I guess we'll see how it goes. It'd be nice to see the article on that. I always liked... Yeah. Hey, did you ever put the numbers up on your 50 days of 50 dates thing, by the way? I don't remember.
I don't either. I think I might have. I'm not sure.
Man, now's not the time to be looking through your archive and reading your stuff.
No,
the live stream is just reading Carl's blog.
I was more thinking about the whole thing with, you'd be surprised at how cathartic it is if your girl has been pissing you off for a week to tie her down to the bed and just flog the shit out of her.
Ooh, I can imagine. I'm more of a choker, but I can see that.
Well, the one thing I would be careful with the choking is that if you're choking her and you're also pissed at her, it may go a little bit too far. Like I know girls have actually had blood vessels in their eyes popped because they were choked too hard during sex.
Okay, so I'm a little tamer then. For me, the choking thing is more, you know, when a dog misbehaves, how you kind of pin him to the ground and just hold him there.
Yeah,
that's what I like doing. Just establishing, like, look, the only reason now you're not being murdered is because I don't feel like it.
That's
not so much because I want to give her that rush. Because again, I don't want to do it as reward. It's more of a dominant thing.
Yeah, but if she's been pissing you off and you're choking her, that's kind of a reward for you.
Yeah. Just shut up. Throw a pillow over her face. It's fine. The brain only needs oxygen every 3 minutes. Pull it off 2.5 minutes. Give her a second. Put it back. The Jason Bourne style of relationships.
By the way, if you're buying, I would avoid the long whips in general. They're very hard to control. I would get probably riding crops and floggers are much easier and much more portable.
Which one's the cat o' nine tails one? Is that the flogger?
Yeah, that's a flogger.
Okay. Yeah, I've had somebody use a riding crop on me. That's it. I don't mind that better because it's got more control. Having things fly around everywhere, I can imagine you catch one in the eye accidentally if the other person's not coordinated enough.
Yeah, and remember, guys, if you're choking a girl and you're putting her in a rear naked choke, you're doing it wrong.
Well, why do you think we're telling everybody to do all this MMA to work on their masculinity? Jeez, man. Can you even triangle choke your woman, bro?
Yeah, that would actually be funny as fuck. to have some guy come on here with the question like, "Hey, I was going to try and choke my girl, but she passed out when I put her in, like, when I locked in the body scissors."
I told her to tap, but she didn't tap because she was so pissed. Oh,
yeah, my
dude.
girl was giving me the silent treatment, so I put her in a chokehold and told her to scream if she wanted to say something, if she wanted me to let her out, and she's super stubborn.
If there's anything that's going to get me on a screen with Dr. Phil shaking his head at me, it's going to be that. So you told him to put her in a triangle choke. I'm like, oh, I've just become a roosh. Damn it. I like Sam. Sorry, I've been leaving this one up. I should deal with these a little sooner. She says the heart wants what the heart wants after cheating. Yeah, post hoc rationalization. It's always funny how shameless girls are at that when they decide to go feral. But I mean, it's like you said, it's all like what I'm feeling at this exact moment. Like she doesn't feel bad about doing this stuff because she felt it at the time. She just feels bad about getting caught because that's taken away the good feelings with the bad feelings.
I do tend to think that if you want to reduce like the odds of like you can go the full way with the surveillance shit, but I think a smoother way is just make sure you're like at least in like her top options and she's invested enough to the point where a guy would have to be like a solid 10 with who's better than you in every category in order to make her cheat.
Yeah.
Because there's a marked difference between like the girl who goes out and just randomly cheats with some rando at a bar and who's a bit overweight, you know, all that shit.
Yeah.
And the girl that specifically goes out and bangs someone who's legit higher value.
Oh, looking for the upgrade? It's not just banging a guy for higher value either. I can't remember. It was Cindy Minson, I think, or maybe even Buss. Might have been David Buss, where they went back to that the study that Rollo always talks about, the better sons theory. And he actually noticed that 75 or 80% of the girls that did the cheating was because they were trying to trade up, as opposed to just, I wanted nice genes and keep this beta simp there. So it's kind of interesting because it's directly against what we think of in the red pill space as like the general sexual strategy for women. But it makes sense too, because it's just straight up hypergamy. If a girl's not feeling it with you, she's going to look to upgrade.
Yeah, but that's the same thing we do, you know, in a sense that if your girl is starting to get fat and annoying, then you're going to look to upgrade too.
Yeah, that's true. Kids are the only exception. I see a lot of guys putting up with all kinds of nonsense because they think it's better for the kids. So I got to wonder then, is that a nature or nurture thing?
I think that's kind of I think it's a nature thing. Like you're kind of supposed to be
one-itis for your kids.
Yeah, in a sense. Like once you have the kid there, and I think once you have like the kid there, then the cheating is probably less likely. I think like a probability wise, just on the basis of investment, you know? Because think of it like a sunk cost, right? We know it's a fallacy, but it works.
Which is true. It's just so weird though, because I see like I have friends, former acquaintances, coworkers and that who they're basically just there because they love their kids, which, you know, you can't fault a guy for that. But the problem I see is that so many of them get really self-sabotaging with their behavior. Like they'll start hookers on the weekends or like start becoming drinking problems. A lot of the weight gain is for these guys in like horrible dying and dead bedrooms. Put aside whether it's a self-inflicted dead bedroom or it's really the girl's just a bitch or whatever. But they literally like kill themselves as a coping strategy to survive through it. And I've noticed a lot of the type of guy that does this too, they don't just, I love my kids, the same way that a father would say he loves his kids. They almost like talk about it the same way that ex-drug addicts and ex-cons talk about how much they love Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, this is the one good thing in my life. Don't take that from me. That kind of vibe.
Yeah, I was kind of reading because I mentioned this when I was on with Troy yesterday. I just finished reading a book about like how people behave when they end up lost in the woods or wherever.
Yeah.
And you kind of have two ways. You either have the guy or the woman in that case who are like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to double down and fix this.
Right.
And then you have the people who are kind of overtaken by hopelessness and get despondent. And I think the guys in the dead bedroom relationship who end up drinking themselves to death are in the latter category.
I guess that can make sense. I'm wondering that if it's not very good, I always call it just learned helplessness, and I just chalk it up to that, but I don't think that's a very precise term. I should almost kind of look into this stuff more.
It was actually very interesting when I was reading that book to kind of read through a lot of like what they end up doing in these situations and see how it kind of mirrors the way guys act in a relationship.
Right.
So if you want to handle the super chat, I'll just grab. I have my book notes.
Well, I was going to say, finish your thought first.
No, just do that, and I'll come back and I'll continue it.
All right. So hey, Phil, thanks for the $9.99 super chat. You're supposed to put a 7 in there, by the way. That's how you make it super marketing. I like your work on boundary enforcement. Quick game question on intro chat with new girls who demand to know the name of your employer and flip out when you don't discuss such details. What the hell? So this is literally like an opening chat on Tinder, and they're asking to know who your employer is. Are those actual girls, or is that like a mining campaign?
Well, that one's kind of strange. Like I've never heard of somebody doing this. No, I've had them ask like, "What do you do?"
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a natural opening question, if you know what I mean. It's
like, if you don't know how to have a conversation, it's an easy.
Yeah, most girls don't know how to have a conversation, you know.
But I mean, for that one, I always just made it up. I just said I was an accountant because nobody gives a shit. And they just wanted an answer to keep the conversation flowing. And if somebody started getting a little bit curious, my usual response, if somebody wants too much information, is like, slow down, we're not there yet. Like, this is like first match on Tinder. Yeah, we're not there yet. Let's slow down before one of us gets pregnant, you know?
I just make fun of them.
That would be a good one too. But that's like here, as soon as they start flipping out, it's like, why is somebody flipping out on somebody they haven't even met yet?
Dude, by flipping out, she's kind of given you the all clear to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
It's like if she flips out at that, imagine how she gets when you're like, no, we're not getting those throw pillows or something like that. You know, if she flips out at you not wanting to share your employer that early, it's a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went through the... finish your thought.
I was going to say, that's the one thing I should preface on boundary enforcement. A lot of guys take this and they start applying it en masse. A girl's got to earn your boundaries. Like, they can't... Boundary enforcement is something you do on somebody you're invested in. If you're pulling this shit on plates, you're wasting your time. Like, next, as much as I said, it's not a refined tool. If a girl hasn't earned your commitment in any way, then just ditch her at the first sign of lack of behavior. You're filtering for a kind of girl who's like 60, 70% of the way there. And that's something you can work with. And that's where boundary enforcement comes in. But I mean, this is like if you were in an office and you hired an employee, you want to hire somebody who's generally got the skills you need and then has a little bit of opportunity for growth. You don't hire somebody off the street who is just flipping signs in front of the pizza and then think you can train them 100% how to do your job.
Oh, definitely not. And I think what you're looking for is a girl who has good enough foundation that it's actually worth investing into. Because like, it's kind of funny that girls marry guys expecting them to change and to expect to train them a bit.
Right.
But most men don't expect to have to do that in a relationship. And you're not going to get like a finished product off the street. You're going to have to train her to your preferences. I mean, you're going to have to teach her how to deep throat properly. You're going to have to train her into a lot of things. And if she's willing to follow your lead on that, then that's a good sign.
Yeah. Because well, you're just talking about like investment. That's the only relationship thing to focus on. Is she invested from a hypergamous perspective?
Okay, so here I just found that note here with the capabilities, and one thing is like the biological cycles. If the person is on the high, is in a high of coping and efficiency, and a low of bumbling and lethargy. It's according to the authors, a new area of research, but biological cycles can kind of push you towards where you are in that. Then you have, your general state of health. Recent illnesses, chronic diseases, poor nutrition, lack of sleep, poor physical condition, etc. That limits your ability to cope with stressing situations.
Right.
Then you have, past experience, experience actually dealing with female behavior, bad relationships. Like, I tend to think that it's good to have been through like a massive shitty ass breakup.
Well, yeah, you flat out know your boundaries at that point.
Because then you kind of know everything. And then you have like the environmental factors here, and that's going to be heat, cold, and altitude if you're lost in the wild. But In the case of a relationship, it's essentially going to be like your financial stance. How do you have like a support system around you? What are your resources in that situation? Do you own property together? Is everything in your name? Do you have your own bank accounts and so on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those
And
logistical and risk issues are awesome if people actually think them through.
So for me, that was kind of interesting to see those parallels.
Yeah, I could say so. I guess we'll take a quick break on that, and we'll come back to that point for Zenus's super chat here. Are there any good resources on Social Circle Game? Your book, future podcast, blogs? I'm pretty sure Carl's going to reflect this sentiment, but that's one of those topics you can't really talk about because the process of having a social circle, like you can't read a book and then have a social circle. All the game stuff, all the stuff about sarging, online dating, how to turn a plate into a pivot, like all that stuff is kind of distant towards building a social circle. But once you have it, you ideally have enough social aptitude that you know how to leverage it into, having sex with the friend of a friend or an acquaintance from a party that knows the person that knows a person, or how to thrive in it. Like, I don't know a way to discuss how to be a socially adept person. You know what I mean, Carl? Like, you just can't.
Yeah,
you kind of have to be there and you have to experience. It's like self-actualization. I can't tell you what to actualize. That's kind of your job.
Social circle game, it's like general game. Everything for all the other areas is going to work there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of, I've never done much of it just because, well, I don't like fucking around in my social circle too much. But I think if you have a social circle and you know game, then you kind of know what you're supposed to do. You don't need to. I don't think anyone's ever done like a book on it.
Yeah, I wish I could I got to think it through, like a good way to articulate it and like a pithy thing. But it's by the time you're there, like if you have to read a book, then you're not there. Essentially. Like I did it. It was perfectly fine. And you're right. Don't sleep around with your coworkers and social workers, but it's not. So the gist of Social Circle Game, if you want to autistic it up, you have you, then you have your close group of friends. And then from your close group of friends, you'll have like your casual friends. It's usually, and your close friends have their own set of like casual friends. And then they become like a third circle, acquaintances. And those are the ones that Social Circle Game works on, because you go to a close friends party. He has his own little hierarchy of his friends, and he's like top dog there. We're at his house for a house party. And then all of a sudden this guy walks in. That's that standard thing they talk about when they talk about Sigma males. Who's this guy when the, top dude at this party thinks he's an awesome friend? So then the acquaintances that aren't really attached to your social circles, except for through your mutual friend, have that pre-selection. So like, oh, this guy's kind of cute. And then you run your normal game as it works there. And you're essentially just swapping acquaintances between interlocking social circles. But when I would describe it that way, it kind of really misses out on it, because this is what normal people would describe as dating. Like all the crap that red pill guys get. Yeah.
I think the main thing is like when we were doing pickup like really, really fucking early, the Social Circle Game wasn't really on the menu, so to speak, because most of the guys were able to get a girl within the social circle, but they wanted more options, because most guys can't always find a girlfriend in their social circle. That's how most people find a girlfriend, either that or work.
Yeah.
So I just don't think it's ever been on the radar. So that's like a blue ocean if someone wants to write that book.
Are you looking at me? Oh my gosh, son of a. By the way, thanks, Mike, for the $5 super chat. No comment on it, which is too bad. I always like chatting with this stuff. And then John Wando, what about if when a plate or non-long-term relationship says that you don't reveal enough or are too enigmatic, what would you do? Okay, let's nip this one in the bud right now. See, this is a reactive comment. This is something that it's just a rabbit hole. If you mention a concept, like in this case, not taking things a girl says seriously, assume whatever she's feeling, that's like a present moment declaration. It's not like a roadmap for future relationships. Stop taking what she says seriously. If she says you're not revealing enough or too enigmatic, that's not an obligation for you to change what you're doing. That's part of like the initial part of frame should be, if somebody gives you a critique like this, You take a second. All right, do they have any merit to it? Well, this is about as much, and then focus on it from your own perspective. Is this about as much as I want to share? Then it's good, and it's not a problem. So when you're asking, like, what do I do if she throws this stuff at my feet, asking me to deal with it? Well, what you should do is what you wanted to do, which is probably what you're doing already. So again, there's no play other than not to play.
Well, I think it comes down to exactly what you said there. And you always have to think when someone gives you a criticism, you don't have to accept it. I mean, the mature thing to do is to kind of think, well, is there any merit to this? And if you kind of, she has a fucking point, then it's something you can work on.
But then it's like, that's not her business anyway. I'll work on that. I'll let you know when I'm done. But
yeah, like you just have to. And like I went through this with a shitty ass mic for fucking a year and a half because I didn't really care, and I decided, I'm got a new computer. I feel I may as well fix that shit.
Yeah. Of course, people still complain, but they got over it.
Yeah, but people are going to whine anyway, man.
Yeah. But that's fine. All right, so that's that one. Yeah, but in general, what do you want? All these ifs. What do you want? She's talking about all this stuff, and the underlying question is, will she leave if I don't cater to her whims? And that's the reactive mindset, and you just can't have it because it's a self-sabotaging way of looking at things. It's a lack of frame, and you're always deferring to the woman in your life, which is probably the least attractive thing you can do over the long term, is defer to your girl all the time. So if your question is if, then you already know it's kind of a badly formulated question, and you need to just change the way you look at it. Change your framing of the situation. That's why it's called frame. How do you frame the interaction?
You can also do things like, for instance, if your girl may actually agree with her on something, you don't have to do it on her time either.
That's true.
So there are ways of doing it. Like I generally, on principle, like to make my girl ask for something like 3, 4, 5 times. And then just say no. And then I'll just go and randomly do it. Because A, she feels like she worked for it. And after usually it's like 2 or 3 no's, she thinks, oh shit, he's not going to budge on this one, fuck. And then when she sees that he actually did it, she's like, oh, he actually listened to me. So she gets a little good jolt of emotion there.
That's clever. I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to come back and report on that. That's actually nice. I don't do that, and I probably should. I like it.
Because a lot of the time, if you pick a smart girl, she'll have a lot of good input.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a fine line between her having a lot of good input and her kind of hijacking the relationship and becoming the leader in the relationship.
Yeah. And that's how the stuff works well. It's the stuff that makes sense that's often like the Trojan horse of taking over on the relationship. Like just because it makes sense and because it's true. It's like what's the term for womanese? The correct combination of words to get you to do what she wants you to do. If it's true, great. Doesn't have to be though. But that's the problem. Guys love a just world, and they like logic, and they like patterns to make sense. So if a girl comes at you with that flawless logic, and now you're like, well, I kind of have to do it because it fits with my laws of the universe. That's the part where I love, sometimes it's good to act a little emotional. Sometimes it's good to do the irrational thing because it just makes you less predictable.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's also that whole line with, I think a lot of guys take the concept of frame and boundary enforcement a little bit too far. In the sense that, okay, let's say you've been complaining that you're having a bit of a pain in the left side of your chest,
right,
for 3 weeks. And your girl says, well, you should go see the doctor. And you're like, no, I'm not going to see a fucking doctor because that means I'm yielding to her. I have to enforce this boundary. And then a week later, you die of a fucking heart attack. That's just stupid.
Yeah. Don't eat paint, fellas. Don't eat paint.
So it's more of it's one of those things. It's very hard to explain some of these things because you're not used to articulate these things. You just kind of do it.
Yeah. Well, you have enough. You trust your own judgment in the situation to see if it's applicable. That's actually how to be able to. Oh, sorry. Go.
Sorry. So go.
I was going to say that was why Rambo became a term in the sphere. Rambo was And people still don't understand it. They think it means a guy who just goes like full red pill at the start and he's just walking like a bull through a china shop. That's not it. It's exactly what you described. It's guys who will just apply things without putting any thought into the implications, what their goals are. It's no red pill guy says this, so I'm doing this. It was a great story by Jack Ten of Hearts when he was trying to explain it to this first guy who did it. Alpha as Wolf was his handle. And that's where we started laughing at guys who have wolves in their titles, in their avies. But he's like, yeah, this is like you're trying to drive to the store. So you get in your car, you open and close the door, you flick the locks, you switch the gears, you turn on your blinkers, you turn it off, and you hit all the buttons. And then you wonder, why am I not at the store yet? Like all those buttons and knobs have uses. But if you're just haphazardly hitting everything because somebody told you that on the internet, well then, like, don't follow this. Go do your own thing. You're basically going to screw up the life. We just don't want to be on the hook for when you do it. And there's no way to explain that to a guy. Use your best judgment or realize that everything is situational.
But I think you just kind of have to come to that acceptance at some point that even to some extent with plates, but you have more leeway there.
Mm-hmm.
But occasionally you're going to have to accept that sometimes a girl can have a good idea in her head.
Yeah. And
especially, I think one of the things I've noticed, especially, is when it comes to decorating and that type of shit.
Oh, the aesthetics in me hates when girls try to decorate. They're so bad at it.
Not about the aesthetics, but about like having certain things that makes it more comfortable or easier to do the shit in an apartment.
Oh, so convenience type stuff, you mean?
Yeah, like what's a good example here?
Well, I was going to say
to do something that's not too specific. Yeah, like removing clutter or buying like things to organize stuff in. And you're going to have to admit that, yeah, she has a point. Like, you don't have to have all your shit just stacked on top of each other. You could actually put stuff in boxes and sort it out.
Ooh, I can think of a perfect example. We're doing that in ours right now. Laundry. Like we just have those standard laundry baskets everybody else does. They're always laying around the house. The dog gets mad at the cat. You pull the thing over. It's never where we want it to be. And it always looks like clutter in the house until the day we do laundry, which is like once a week. So my girl has the idea, well, we'll get those hanging ones, put it right beside the laundry room there. You know, the hanging baskets?
Yeah.
So that way it's always there. The laundry's always put away. The dog can't throw laundry across the floor when he wants to establish how much tougher he is than the cat. I'm like, it's a great idea. And I just didn't think of doing it. Because for me, the laundry in a basket, even if the basket's somewhere where it's not supposed to be, I'm like, that looks clean enough. I'm happy with that. But
yeah, so I just think you're going to have to get that point, and it's always going to be a big give and take situation. You just have to make sure that she's not running roughshod over you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. But that's the other thing. That's, again, back to the personal example. There's always this, but then there's a new thing, and then a new thing. And if I just follow all of her good ideas, I'm on nonstop plow horse mode, constantly fixing and renovating. And sometimes it's just like, look, that sounds great. Let's put that low priority. That's my little code for like, no, not now. No, maybe it is a good idea. Maybe it's not, but I'm not about to do like $800,000 worth of renovations to make our life 7 seconds easier over the course of 3 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to kind of get to that point where you know, like, okay, that's a good idea. Let's go with that. Yeah, we might do that later. Or, you know, like right now I'm renting and, you know, you have a convenient excuse like, yeah, I can't do that because that would fuck up the walls. And, you know, I'm planning on staying here forever.
Right. And I guess, here, I'll explain to you this one. So I have the super chat below. When streaming Among Us, use the camera feed to cover the join code and share offline. Don't let Alice win. So I'm on Twitch now. I'll put the channel in the thing here if you guys ever watch this stuff. It took me a long time to figure it out, but there's this game called Among Us, which is basically Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies meets a cell phone game. And I guess I had the join room on the screen, and this person saw it on the stream and then joined on the game just to kill me. So this is some helpful advice from a gamer to teach me how to not play these goofy Candy Crush games and get murdered so badly. But thank you for the advice.
Yeah, One Man's Way had a good question here too. What's the antithesis of saying sorry? What do you do when you think you should apologize, but it would ruin frame?
Fix what the problem is.
Yeah, you don't have to say sorry as long as you fix the problem.
Yeah, like let's look into this then. I'll get to Z in the super chat and the one below that in a sec. Or I guess here, I'll put one man's way up. 1 sec. Where'd it go?
Yeah, sorry if I'm fucking with your super chat execution.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We'll get to everybody. I just don't want to lose track. So what's the purpose of saying sorry? Saying sorry is feelings. I want to acknowledge that I have done you a wrong and that I want you to feel better about it. You're literally offloading your guilt onto the other person by asking for their forgiveness. That's the problem, though, is it hinges on that person giving you forgiveness. So they, in this interaction, they become the judge. They become the power. They become the higher status person because they have something that you want and they can choose to give it to you or not. And that's where a lot of guys will say sorry. And then the girl does silent treatment and all those things we were talking about before, basically to get a guy to grovel back in the worst case scenario. So yeah, as a general principle, and guys will fight you tooth and nail over sorry. Like, well, why don't you say sorry? Why don't you just admit it? Why don't you be the bigger man? It's like, look, I can feel bad about things. That's true. I'm supposed to feel bad if I do something stupid that gets people hurt that I didn't intend to. That's our little moral compass telling us, hey, murdering your friends aren't good. But who are you to offload that responsibility for you to live with that burden onto somebody else? That's like guys who admit they fess up that they're cheating on their girl. The girl didn't want to know. The girl like put up with it. You know, the sharing an alpha, don't want to be saddled with the beta thing. Guy cheats, feels guilty, admits it to the girl to get forgiveness. It's like, so now, because this girl did nothing, you're putting all the onus on her to process all these emotions, to forgive you, to get past it, just because you felt too bad over doing something to live with that guilt. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
it's a very selfish thing.
Yeah, apologizing is a lot of the time it's selfish, and a lot of the time it's, if you cheated, it's kind of hard to fix that one. But most other things, if it's a problem you can fix, like if she's pissed about you calling, you know, her best friend a cunt in front of her, well, you know, just it's very contextual in my opinion, because like if let's say a girl was pissed that I called her friend a cunt, then my response to that would be like, well, you know, if she doesn't want to be called a cunt, she should stop being a cunt.
Yeah, I was like, am I wrong or is it just mean?
Yeah, so and both of those situations, let's explore those a bit. If it's something you did wrong, then that's on you to kind of fix it. But it's better to fix by doing, because if you do it, then that demonstrates, yeah, I'm sorry. And it also shows your commitment in fixing what the problem was.
Yeah.
The second thing is just more about feelings and proper behavior. And I just don't really care that much about those things. But I think it kind of comes down to what kind of personality you are. Like, I'm very direct. So for me, it's, if she, let's say the girl seems to be in a bad mood, it's natural for me to ask, you know, what's wrong? It's kind of a natural thing to ask and try and clear it up right away.
Yeah.
And if you get that kind of communication going, you make your life so much easier. Because a lot of the like subtleties and intricacies and reading between the lines kind of go out the window when you're actually trying to communicate something other than, hi, I'm a hot dude and you want to fuck me.
I'd say so. I will add to that. Can I amend your
workout
logistics before I let you run?
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm in like a really crappy mood and I know it's nothing to do with the girl, she keeps asking what's wrong. Like I stub my toe. It's like, and I get pissed. So I was like, what's wrong? She wants to talk about it. I was like, look, I hurt myself. I don't want to talk about my problems right now. Like, I'll get over this. Just shut the fuck up and let me deal with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let me be angry. I'll get over it. Go over there for a minute. As opposed to like, you know, sorting out the problem. Sometimes the problem is just space and time. I'll deal with it when I deal with it. But I interrupt.
But I was going to say that you just think about, should I apologize in this situation? Like, if this was anyone other than, you know, a girl you're in a relationship of some form with, would you say sorry? And if you
like
wouldn't,
actual
then
sorry,
you shouldn't do it in that
sorry.
context. Yeah, Canadian sorry is like English, please.
Yeah.
But like, I think the only time I actually use the word sorry is when I bump into someone on accident.
Oh, yeah. So, like, excuse me.
Yeah, or I'm accidentally, you know, elbow someone in the face.
So I guess when we say sorry, it should be like an apology is what we're referring to specifically.
Yeah,
it's not even so much the word sorry itself.
No, it's more the implications for the interaction and the frame. And if you're constantly saying sorry, that's a thing too. It's like if you're constantly saying sorry, then that's a problem you should fix.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that happens once in a blue moon because you legit did something dumb, then it's fair.
Yeah. I guess
It's
that's
like
a good way of looking at it. If it's the kind of thing that's never going to happen, an apology won't work too bad.
It was kind of like I think I wrote this like sarcastic short blog post at one point about like the guy with the ultimate alpha frame and why that shit would never actually work.
I don't know. Twitter's got a bone to pick with that. I think they think it works perfectly.
Because, well, the issue with it is like you have to think about it's not just relationships with someone you're fucking, it's also relationships with everybody else.
Yeah.
No one likes the arrogant asshole that never admits that he did something wrong, always have to have it his way, doesn't work well in a team. Nobody wants to work with that guy. Nobody wants him in a group of friends. Nobody wants that guy at Thanksgiving dinner.
The guy who's got good frame, not because he's got alpha, but good frame because he's oblivious to everything else, right?
Yeah, oblivious and, just willing to dial the aggression up or, throw tantrums and whatever whenever he doesn't get his way.
Exactly.
Because you have to think about that balance thing because I'm not sure who said, I think it was Troy. He wrote a book, Asshole Game, How to Be the Likeable Asshole That Women Love. The key word in that sentence is likable. Because
totally underrated
Underrated what?
Comment.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty much the info. Yeah, that was a good comment.
Yeah.
No, so I think you have to keep that in mind in any relationship because if you act like a certain president who may or may not be orange in your personal life, not a lot of people are going to want to hang around you a lot.
Yeah, I agree. These guys are making fun of the background of the accent. Now I agree on that. And honestly, like for a certain orange president, I think it works for him because he's at the top of the screw pile. Like he can afford to. It's almost like a social signal. It's like, look, I can be an absolute boorish ass and people will still like me because they have to. But you're right. The guy who works in the mailroom can't get away with that.
Well, I remember a negotiation I was sitting in on. I'm not going to say what my role was there, but the one party of that negotiation was being very, very hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And the other guy, in the end, he was getting pretty snappy. And the other guy was just like, I had this thing called fuck you money. So fuck you.
Nice. I've never heard that come up in a contract negotiation. It's always just implied.
So, and you can get away with it if you're like the top dog or if you have something another person wants, and you can get away with it for a while in a personal relationship, but you're not going to be able to get away with it constantly over a long period of time.
Yeah, it's because it's an alpha behavior.
So you have to kind of dial in that nice balance.
As long as you want to have future interactions. But yeah, it's a perfect example of like that aloofness or that boorish behavior is alpha. Really great for initial interaction. If you're on a date with somebody, probably get some super wet. If you're doing a contract for a one-off thing, probably can work, but you're right. It's like if it's an iterated process, it's ultimately self-sabotaging.
And I've worked with people who are like that, and they're always like the first clients you drop. Because if any little thing doesn't go according to plan, they snap, they're hard to work with, they're never solution-oriented, they're more blame-oriented. So I think it's just behavior you have to look out for.
Yeah, I agree. And I find the guys that do really well are the ones that can tactically apply that. Like the guy who can be that total, I'm just going to use dating as the example here, that total boorish asshole, gets a girl in bed, the orange man bad thing, but girls are so turned on by it. But then, the next morning makes breakfast and then puts you in a cab on your way. Like it's almost like the Dom sub thing. Like how do they joke? One of my coworkers just say this, how my training style was. It's like you beat me and then buy me flowers. You know what I mean? Which is the funniest thing I've ever heard somebody say about my leadership style.
Well, that's actually a kind of a good approach to a relationship too, because you have to be solid on your boundaries. I think we talked about that a couple of times. Like, you have your hard boundaries, you have your soft boundaries, you have your I don't care boundaries, and then you have and you have those in every kind of situation. And sometimes the hard boundaries are always enforced, and they're always enforced unequivocally.
Right.
Then you have the soft boundaries. You can kind of slip a bit on them. You hold them, but let's say you fall back a bit, but you still hold the boundary.
Yeah, they're bendable, but they're not breakable.
Yeah. And then you have the I don't care boundaries. Those are boundaries you enforce for some other reason. Like, I'm always against spending money on shit that's not a priority for me. So I'll always enforce a boundary where it's implied that this will cost money. Or this will be my money will be spent on it.
Right.
Like, if the girl goes and buys that herself, then I don't care. Because it's not about the thing, it's about the principle of not spending money on it.
Yeah. Well, secondary is, what do they call it? Like secondary characteristics. It's similar to that.
So I think just coming down with having a good idea. What do you want? What are your boundaries? What are hard, soft, and I don't care boundaries that are there that you kind of enforce just so she can have a little bit of a debate or an argument. So she gets that little dopamine hit.
Right. That's fine.
So
play a little game. It's called game, so it should be fun. Have a good joke with it.
Yeah. Do we have any super chats, by the way?
I think we're caught up. If I missed anybody, they'll let me know in the chat. Ooh, here, I was thinking of this, though. Back, we're talking about this, fighting, manufactured outrage, all the topics we've been hitting here. It was something that came up in the Patreon community. Now, I won't say who, discretion, but the concept was awesome. He was trying manufactured outrage, and the first thing his girl did is called him on it. It's like, dude, come on. Just starts laughing at him, and he goes, what do I do there? And I kind of laughed at that because I can't see his interaction. I can't tell if he didn't own it. He was acting all sheepish, but pretending like he was angry, or if the girl just had such a strong frame, he even tried to assert his frame and she just shot it down. But I found that one fascinating, and I could spend a year studying that dynamic if I could be a fly on the wall for one of those. I guess this is the first you're hearing of it, so I'm curious your thoughts on it.
Well, my thinking is once you realize and you start enforcing your frame for the first time, it's going to be weird. And I've always kind of thought of it in sort of an implementation style thing. If you're in an existing relationship and you're looking to kind of recover having fucked something up, and you have to start small. You need to start like Ryan's and the I'm crying myself to sleep while drinking Bud Light Reddit used to say. You have to start with the behaviors that are 100% controlled by you. And that's go to the gym, fix your wardrobe, get a decent haircut, do all those self-care behaviors. Because I noticed that with myself when I had the medical situation last year.
Right.
The first thing that went away were a lot of these self-care behaviors. And getting those back helps you build that confidence in yourself again. Because if you take good care of yourself, you're implying to yourself that I'm worth taking care of. If you're not taking good care of yourself, you're implying that I'm not worth taking care of.
Dude, that's so important. I'm surprised people don't see it that way.
And it kind of comes by it's like that with everything. Like, my car has always and will always be a trash dump.
Mm-hmm. And
that's because it's not important to me to take care of a car, because I buy cheap cars and I run them into the ground. Because it's something I want to get from point A to point B. And I want the most car I can get for the least amount of money. And it's not a priority to keep that thing and service it and shit like that. If it breaks, it's usually cheaper to condemn it.
Exactly.
And if you do that to yourself, where you're actually beating the shit out of yourself, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not eating right, you're probably drinking too much, you're spending too much time on the couch, sitting down, you're maybe even not, showering or brushing your teeth and that type of shit. At
washing
that point,
your balls.
Yeah, at that point, you kind of let yourself go to a point where, you're literally telling yourself you're worthless. You're not worth taking care of.
Mm-hmm. Or even the learned helplessness from earlier. Remember when I was talking about the guys who like medicate themselves because they're in that horrible dead bedroom, but they love their kids? Self-care is like first step for those guys too.
So I think once you get there, then you can start working with frame. But like if your girl is in complete control of that relationship, you probably shouldn't start off with, a big boy alpha move. You should start off with something, let's say, a little bit more easily managed, I guess would be the term.
Mm-hmm.
Start off with, your time, maybe that you start by blocking off part of the week for yourself. If you have like a shared out, like I had a guy I talked to, and his wife completely ran his life via his Outlook calendar, because she would have everything planned out like 3 months ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And he just had to show up. So his first kind of boundary was to start blocking out the time he wanted for himself.
Dude, I had a boss that did that. His wife would just send him shopping lists and send him off like honey-do tasks. It's absolutely brutal to watch him. He was like a shell of a man. We used to make fun of him so much.
Yeah, like honey-do tasks isn't the worst thing, or honey-do lists, as long as she's not nagging you to do it on her time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always like been like the two hard boundaries I kind of have: time and money. Another person doesn't get to control my time, and they don't get to control my money.
It's freedom, man. Freedom in a heartbeat.
So those two things I will enforce very hard. The rest I'm kind of flexible on, because I just don't think it's important to be running all over the place. And if you have to start to micromanage boundaries and stuff, that's going to take all your time.
Mm-hmm.
It's those first 20%. It's that Pareto principle again. I think if more people lived according to that principle and just viewed it that, okay, I'm going to do like the 20% of this shit that gets me
80% of your results.
And the other 20%, they're not going to matter in the big picture. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Or at the very least, revisit the issue once you got that 20% out of the way. Like I always love that when Homer had the jar of mayonnaise and he's eating that and he's like, oh, this is going to suck for tomorrow, Homer. But that's tomorrow's problem. I would say, yeah, fix that easy stuff. And then once that easy stuff is done, I'll let tomorrow me sort out what to do with the last 20% of the stuff that I want to put effort into. Because too many guys, that's all you see on Twitter is everybody is there talking about that top 20% stuff, top tier man this, top tier man that. It's like, dude, most people don't care about top 20%. You don't need it to live out a pretty good life. If you want to do it, that's great. But if you haven't sorted out that bottom 80% of very easy, low-hanging fruit, then why are you wasting your time other than as a crutch to prevent you from starting? I can't see it. And I'm surprised it resonates so well on Twitter.
Well, to be honest, that's kind of what has been frustrating me for a while about the whole thing, is that if you're doing all the shit that everyone is telling you to do,
mm-hmm.
when do you have time to actually live? It's like, there's an old joke. I think I told it on here before. This couple dies on the same day and they end up in heaven. And St. Peter is taking them around and showing them around in heaven. And first they come into like a huge banquet hall.
Mm-hmm.
And St. Peter goes, here you can eat whatever you want and as much as you want, costs nothing. And the husband's like, well, won't that give us heart disease? Won't it give us, make us overweight? And he's like, no, this is heaven, man. No bad consequences. He takes them further in and they come to a huge bar, and St. Peter's like, here, you can drink as much as you want, whenever you want, just knock yourself out. The husband's like, well, won't that give me cirrhosis? Won't we get hangovers? Won't we get fat? And St. Peter said, no, I told you there's no negative consequences here in heaven. Takes them into a last room, and there's a huge tobacco room filled with all kinds of cigars and cigarettes and pipes. And he's like, and here you can smoke any tobacco you want, as much as you want, whenever you want. Enjoy yourself. And the husband goes, yeah, but won't we get lung problems and heart problems and cancer? And St. Peter's like, no, man, I mean, this is heaven. There's no negative consequences to anything you do here. So the husband turns around to his wife and he's like, you hear that, you cunt? If it wasn't for you and your fucking bran flakes, we would have been here fucking 30 years ago.
I actually like that one, dude. You should have told me that for the Nick August humor podcast. I didn't see where that one was going at all.
The reason I like that one is I get to the end, Carl. Now, the reason I like that joke is because it kind of illustrates what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're spending all your time being the top 5% man, you don't actually have time to enjoy being that 5% man.
I agree.
Because even the guys who are pretending to be like 5% men aren't really 5% men.
Are you saying they're lying about their status?
Oh, well, that's God. One. Well, I wasn't quite going there. What I was going with it is, even if they are 5% men, they have shit behind the scenes that you don't know about, and it's not just on here. Like, you have Bill Gates is a top guy in money. He probably has issue. His wife isn't like exactly a looker. He should have been able to do better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always something that you don't have time to focus on as much as you want to. That's why you have very few people who have competed in strength in powerlifting can do like let's say 2K total. They have a doctorate or 2 doctorates. They've been published in prestigious journals. They're millionaires, et cetera, et cetera.
There's trade-offs.
All of this takes time, and it's a trade-off.
And then that's the thing too. So you'll see the guy who's the top 1% of powerlifters, and you're 100% right. But here's a perfect way to bring it back to your illustration. You see that amateur powerlifter. He's maybe not in the 2000 club. He's only doing 1500 or whatever for his like max lifts or whatever. But he also has like a pretty good career going on, earns some good money, but he didn't have time for school. But then you get the guy who's just done, I think you used to talk about it, like get over the threshold of success and then move on to something else. You'll see that guy that's, he's a pretty good weightlifter, but he's not strong. He's in pretty good shape, but he's not jacked. Oh, he makes pretty good money, but he's not a billionaire. But like, no weaknesses, only strengths, but none of it is brag worthy. And I'd argue that sweet spot is that's the attainable good life that I don't think anybody can't make. Like, not everybody's going to be 1% something, but everybody can be top 30% in like 5 different things. And how many things in your life do you really need to be good at? There's resources, like being able to not worry about where your next meal's coming from. There's long-term security. There's like, you'll never have to worry about your next paycheck. There's relationships. I never have to worry about not getting sex ever. And then some kind of long-term pursuit. Well, I never have to worry about, like, I'll write a book or, some hobby. I build Lego ships. And you get all those things to a decent level. You're going to find, I don't find many people other than the obsessive, addictive types are like, no, I have to build the biggest computer company in the world. Otherwise, I just don't feel it.
And I think also that kind of lifestyle also enables you to have trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Because like guys who run huge billion-dollar companies, they don't have hobbies.
Nope. I mean,
they can barely get enough sleep. Yeah, they can. That's their hobby and it's their work, and they can usually maybe they have like an hour a couple of times a week to work out. They see their family very little. They rarely take vacations. And then that's their trade-off. They've chosen to obsessively focus on one pursuit and give that top priority over everything else in their life. And thinking that, I'm going to compete with that guy on 30 hours a week or 10 hours a week. That's just not going to happen.
No. On the off chance, maybe you're extremely talented and you can do it with less, but that's the problem now. There's so many people around that there's going to be somebody who is that obsessive and more talented too.
And for me, at least, it was always easier to kind of find that sweet spot where I'm in good enough shape that I'm able to do whatever I kind of would come naturally want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you don't lift, like lifting, let's say deadlifting 800 pounds. You don't deadlift the 800 pounds to move on to something else. You do that because you want to deadlift 800 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. Lightweight.
Well, you could get in good shape without ever going over like 400 or 500 pounds, even less than that. I'm not going to cite numbers. And the guys with those like top line physiques where they're like ripped and jacked year round, you think those guys are, enjoying, can eat whatever they want? No, they eat probably a very, very strict diet for the most part.
Yeah.
And they work out very hard to maintain it. So they don't have the leeway of going away for like 4 weeks on a cruise and just eating everything in sight because it's all inclusive and they want their money's worth.
Yeah. And maybe that stuff's not important to them, but that's them. That's not you.
And I think to kind of circle this back to like the emotion thing, you just have to decide, are you going to let yourself be influenced by it when you are in that situation? And you'll always be to some extent, but you can control your reaction to her emotions in any situation. And I think what a lot of guys do is they don't.
Mm-hmm.
The wife is angry, so they get angry.
Yeah.
Their wife nags, so they listen. And I think
that's all right because it's her fault.
And to them, they're reactive in the sense that they are only responding to her without thinking. And that's how you lose frame. You don't lose frame by reacting in the way you think is
acting,
valid in that situation. But you do lose if you're just reacting to her.
Like we even had a quote on that. It's living life versus letting life happen to you. It's like one of the better ways I've seen people describe frame.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But here's a question for you then. I was thinking about this stuff. You're talking about the guys who are obsessive about a single thing versus guys who tend to be more Renaissance men. Do you think, in general, the guys that are hyper-focused on that one thing, do you think that makes them happy? Or do you think it's just more of an addiction? And I'll use a gaming reference. You know, WoW, there's a lot of players that actually enjoy playing World of Warcraft. But then there's other players that are just kind of hooked on that one-armed bandit dopamine response. Like, oh, just one more quest, just one more quest. But they're not actually enjoying themselves. They're just hooked on the process.
Yeah, I think that's common in that game in a sense, more than a lot of other games. And I think for a lot of men, there are just those two. Some of them are enjoying it. Like I know guys who have obsessive interests in narrow fields. And it's a lot of fun to actually talk to those guys because they're very, very good at that field. Right. And that makes them happy. They're the kind of people that take Warren Buffett.
Okay.
The only interest he's ever had was finance. Like this little fucker was reading the Wall Street Journal when he was 11.
I remember that. Yeah, and he read every book his library had on finances. I've heard his origin story there.
Yeah, and like he's been obsessed. That's his one singular interest, and he's still working despite having fuck you money since the 60s, just because he actually enjoys that process. Then you have people who get into that field, not because they're interested in it, but because it makes good money. And they're not going to get as good because when Warren goes home at night and he reads quarterly reports and investing books because he enjoys it, they're going to go out and party or they're going home to do something else. And for me, it's the reason why I would say I'm as much of a Renaissance man as I am is just because I have too much ADD to focus on one thing.
Again, we have so much in common.
So what I do is, but what I found is the more things you learn about, the more you see the similarities between them. And that's actually one of those things that I have a lot of use for in the work that I do now, is that when you know a lot of different systems, you can kind of see how they fit together. And then when you come to something, you can kind of see, okay, this is how everything is working together in this context.
Yeah, situational awareness.
So I think you can go both ways. I've always kind of preferred the Renaissance man route because that was an aspiration I started with really early. Because if I was supposed to sit there and just focus on one thing, I'll get bored and watch YouTube. But like just this month, like I've been through like books on like 6 or 7 different topics. I've read on like 6 or 7 topics, all very different, because something caught my interest and it kind of snowballed from there. Like the worst thing that exists in the world for me is that people who bought this book also bought this book on Amazon.
Oh, that's your rabbit hole?
Yeah, or like same thing with Wikipedia. Sometimes I've spent like 5 hours just reading random Wikipedia articles. No, but it comes up because like I need to look something up, right? So I look something up and I see something in that thing while I'm looking up. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let me check that. And oh, that was really interesting. But oh, what's this? And I just keep going like that.
Yeah, well, dude, there's games based on that. They call it like 6 degrees of Wikipedia. And as you always pick something and then you pick a starting point, you see how long it could take you to like click just links in the Wikipedia articles to get to there.
Funniest one version of that is when you use random page.
Ooh, that actually is kind of funny.
So but you just go open Wikipedia, click random page, and then decide on something first. Then you click random page, and you're supposed to navigate from that page to the last page. It's really fun.
But I could see your situational awareness being good for there. Here's the thing I was going to ask too, as a follow-up to that. Is the obsessive guy happy? You're saying, yeah, maybe for Warren Buffett, being obsessed about money is a good thing. But then I think of the guy who's obsessed with cocaine. Same mentality, obviously destructive. And my thought, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is the Renaissance man is good in that you're trusting that your judgment might not be perfect. So yeah, you may end up being the Warren Buffett of, something, or you're obsessed with something that's a positive in the net, but you could also end up that guy who's like obsessed with gambling. Yeah. And the only way to know the difference is whether by the time you look back in 10 years, you realize if your life is a sham and you look like a meth head and you're the president of the manosphere, or whether you're Warren Buffett.
I think you kind of notice as you're going along, though, right? Because you might not know that you're on the right way, but you always know if you're on the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, the guys that do, though, they don't stop. That's the thing.
No,
I'm thinking
they don't stop and reason. And I think that's an important thing with anything you devote a lot of time to, is to kind of, how much time are you devoting to this one thing? And what results are you getting, and what was your original plan? Mm-hmm. Because I've seen so many guys come and join this space and they get really into like the self-improvement shit.
Yeah.
And they start to kind of, they lift weights, they fix their place, they get themselves in great shape, they fix their hair, they learn game. It's like, yeah, so man, how are you after your first year in the manosphere? Oh, it's great, man. I'm making more money. I'm looking healthier. How many girls have you slept with? Oh, none. I'll get to that next year.
Yeah, it's aimless. That's the problem, is that they just want to be told what to do. And that's the problem I have with guys who are addicted. If you have an addictive type personality, basically you're really susceptible to somebody influencing you. Like, hey man, first hit's free. Come on here. Let's do Bitcoin. Or hey, come here. Let's play World of Warcraft. Or hey, come here. Let's do finance. Here, let's do Coke. It's very easy to draw that person's addictive personality towards something that may not be in their best interests. And obviously, if it was a matter, like you said, the perfect solution is occasionally have some self-reflection. Hey, is this 3 times a week cocaine habit really good for me? Probably not. Maybe I should quit. But if it was that easy, we wouldn't have alcoholics and coke heads. And so that's what I'm thinking. Like, you kind of have to rely, like, trust in that you're not perfect. You're fallible. And I know my human meatbag brain is probably going to have an addiction to crack. So if I do the Renaissance thing, like you said, pick a bunch of different hobbies, do them 7 out of 10, don't get obsessive about any one thing. It makes it less likely that my own human failings are going to come back to bite me in the ass. And just trust that I may not be as self-aware as I think I am. That's my thought on it anyway.
I would kind of, you use 2 words there, and I tend to say I don't have an addictive personality. I have an obsessive personality.
Or yeah, that's probably a more accurate way of putting it.
And the distinction is, an addictive personality is like the guy who's like gets addicted to Coke, or he gets addicted to lifting, or he gets addicted to whatever, and he just can't stop himself. An obsessive personality, the way I define it, is that you have the ability and the tendency to become obsessed with things, but everything is kind of short term.
I could quit at any time.
Yeah, but I've noticed that, like, I can actually quit. I don't get addicted to things. Mm-hmm. I get obsessed with things, and I keep doing them until I've reached a certain point, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm bored.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm the same way. Like, my girl was actually amazed that all of a sudden one day I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to stop doing something. I don't feel like doing it. And then just stop. She calls it a superpower. So I don't know. Maybe my girl's just not, maybe it is a superpower, or maybe my girl just needs some work on it. I don't know.
I think it's a bit of both. Like, I've noticed that because if I decide that I'm not eating, let's say, candy, I have no problem stopping. I still want some, but I just don't eat it.
Yeah. Don't buy it. Don't put it in the house. It never becomes a problem.
But because I have to kind of pick, I can either have it or I cannot have it. I can't do like the midway thing where you have some in the house,
but you don't touch it.
I end up eating all of it.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Okay, let's see. One man's hobbies is private investigator. Oh, you're one of those nut jobs on the true crime Reddit?
Oh yeah, so I guess you finally got into that now too. I've never seen it. I just hear people talk about it the same way they talk about Rick and Morty, which tells me right there I probably don't want to go see it.
Well, I do actually enjoy that kind of thing because I think it's kind of interesting to look at like unsolved mysteries and trying to figure out what probably happened.
Yeah.
But what I found on Reddit, especially, is that things have a tendency to always be like a huge conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is classic Reddit where the lengthier a person's comment is, the more right it has to be because they put effort in. The less spelling. It used to be like spelling mistakes would affect your credibility, as opposed to like, it's Reddit, I'm not doing a thesis here. Yeah, they're big on that. It's like Reddit is designed for midwits to finally shine. And I think you kind of caught that. Way of putting it. Oh man. But yeah, the PI stuff, I see guys who do that. They seem to enjoy it. And then Link Zelda with his $5 super chat. You guys might like Obsidian. It's like creating a second brain for yourself. It's literally a way to see connections that interest you. I have no idea what Obsidian is.
I'm looking it up right now.
All right, guys. This part of the podcast, Carl and I read stuff on the internet for you.
No, like, I'm not going to read. I was just going to find the one. Is it the game called Obsidian? Or is it something else? Can you like put a link in the chat for it? Well, you can't put links, I guess, but can you just put in something in chat what it is so we can find it?
I'm just going to search Obsidian Brain. Oh, Obsidian.md, a second brain for you forever. It's a powerful knowledge base that works on top of a local folder and plain mark text files. Oh, dude, it's a mind map. It's a mind mapping tool.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's neat though. Like, I get it. But having it as a tech thing, I've always just had it as like a notepad with paper. I can't remember which. It was somewhere in university. I think it was for art, actually, where I learned about these. And then all you got to do if you want to break down themes is you start with like a central concept and then tag things that are peripheral to it. And then you tag those two things that are peripheral about it. Then you eventually build a giant map. And then you try and build like concepts out of it.
That's actually I'm going to look into that after we're done with the podcast. I'm not going to try and get into it when I'm doing it while I'm on the podcast. That's kind of silly.
Oh, it's interesting though. Yeah, they taught, and that OODA loops are in here when they're talking about concepts. Okay, so it's clearly something that's designed for the kind of person who likes my stuff. I bet you found me through Obsidian, didn't you? Search up Venkatesh Rao, and then you find out Ryan, and then you find Carl. Next thing you know, you're going to be playing WoW. It's like a second brain.
Well, actually, I've kind of stopped playing. But I'm going to find something else. You have Cyberpunk coming out soon.
Yeah. It's coming soon.
Plus, they're bringing out like a new Horizon Zero Dawn is going to come when they come with the PS5. So, but what does this have to do with her emotions? Well, I guess you can use the PS5 to get away from them.
Yeah, graph to see the connections. Yeah, I don't know. I used to do this with like pencil crayons and a notepad, so it's nothing new. Definitely interesting though if you're kind of into that stuff. It's usually good too if you want to do some deep dives into stuff. The creative process really benefits from it because that's kind of where. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just thinking. Like, I think the best way of kind of getting into this issue that we've been talking about and seeing examples of what not to do, go to like the Reddit for relationships.
Oh my god, I love that place. There's so much content. I could make videos and videos on how not to be that guy.
Because I think with a lot of the guys, what's happened is like everyone has like a few pounds they put on when they get into a relationship, and they both do that. Then they remove all the mystery. They stop giving a shit about being attractive to the other person, and then that kind of spills over because if your partner isn't attractive to you and is not putting in the work, that's going to piss you off. It's not like you establish that covert contract. But it's kind of expected, you expect your partner to let themselves go a little.
Yeah. Your window of
because I've seen some girls post like, my husband won't sleep with me anymore. He says I put on some weights. I'm not attractive. How much weight did you put on? Like 150 pounds and I'm 5 feet.
Dude, that's the thing that sucks about the relationship one on Reddit is that you can't even mention that. Like you'll get such an obvious case of weight gain syndrome. Like, yeah, it's weird. All of a sudden, over the last year, my husband's drive has waned off. He doesn't sleep with me. He watches a ton of porn, but I just can't get him. And I tried everything. I tried dressing nicely. I tried, baking him goods. I tried this. I tried that. And it's like screaming out at you. Have you gained any weight? But the mods will just remove that and ban you instantly. Dude, you can't bring that up. That's shaming girls. I'm like, fair enough. Enjoy your problems.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, I think some of that, I think it's very unfortunate that they've actually gotten to that point because I think it would be a lot easier to deal with because it's such an easy thing to fix, you just stop eating.
Yeah. Stop eating. Or is it eat less, do more is the core to it. There's always the edge cases of hormones and stuff like that, but get a doctor's appointment, get a referral, get a prescription. If that's the case, when people are talking about it's their hormones, I'm like, dude, gym bros have been getting TRT or stacks for as long as I've known. There's no way if you didn't want to get better, you couldn't get better. It's just you haven't prioritized it, and that's the issue.
And I think a lot of the thing is it's just about like you do what's comfortable, and that's why I came up with that beta by 1,000 concessions thing. Because all you have to do in order to get there is just do nothing.
How funny. So simple, yet so profound.
if you do nothing, you become a beta by 1,000 concessions. It's that simple. You have to actively be a participant in your own life in order to avoid it.
The prime actor in your own life. I'd take it that one step further.
Yeah, prime actor. That's a better term to use for it.
Yeah. So I like doing these with you, by the way. It's so neat because I like how the way you phrase things gets me to conceptualize concepts slightly differently. And I like to think I'm doing it back too. If nothing else, at least pithier ways of putting it together so I can make bomb-ass tweets.
Yeah, it's interesting to have those. I had the same thing with Troy yesterday. We had a very good podcast, and we didn't actually have a topic. We were just running our mouths for 90 minutes, and he had a couple of game questions. And I think that was actually a very good format for it because you touch on things that are interesting. And like that whiner from last week was saying, like, I'm not going to stay on like one topic and hammer it for 2 hours in a podcast. I'd fall asleep or I'd start, watching YouTube during the podcast.
Well, there's very few topics you could spend a whole 2 hours doing a deep dive in. Things just aren't like this. Relationships aren't that wide. You know what I mean? There's not much you can take from it.
And like a situation like this, like you can solve up like the issue of your girl's emotions killing you. Well, is it killing you psychologically in that you are empathizing and thus being taken over by her emotions? If so, you need to actually make yourself conscious that you're doing it.
Yeah. Because
we do a lot of things subconsciously, and this tends to be the one because we're kind of built to empathize with people we care about. Well, we're even built to empathize with people who are just similar to us. Like, if you ever seen an other dude get kicked in the balls, your balls kind of hurt, and you're like, oh shit. So every guy's like that, and we're kind of built, but you have to make that process conscious, in my opinion,
or at least be aware of it. Like, so I agree. Like, let's say you cry at movies all the time. And girls aren't going to like you if you cry in front of them. So just don't take girls to movies. Like, at least knowing your weaknesses and working around them.
Yeah, exactly. And if and then there's the other aspect. Like, if her emotions are killing you in that you're drinking more, you're doing things to be able to handle her emotions, because that's kind of a natural thing to do. Like, if your wife is bitching at you constantly, you start drinking. That's how Andy Cap came up.
Oh yeah, the comic about the guy that beats his wife. I remember that.
No, he drinks and his wife beats him.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's how Charlie Brown and Lucy grew up into Andy Cap.
So, as that situation is, you have to go with how can you put that productive? Like, if your wife has a habit of bitching you out, well, whenever she starts bitching, you go to the gym. Yeah, it's not going to fix whatever she's bitching about, but you'll be in better shape. And hopefully, if you're starting to get in good shape, that'll make her think, oh, why is he getting in shape all of a sudden? We've been together 5 years. I've never seen him go to the gym, and he goes like 7 times a week now. She's going to make an effort to either, be better because she wants you around more, or she's going to
double down on the poor behavior.
But at least then you can cheat with some gym bunny at the gym.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. A lot of guys, where they are like, why are we doing all this? Like, we talk about fixing things around the house, basically treating your house as if your wife was dead, and just do what you would do if she wasn't there. So that means you do all the chores, you take the kids, you do this. And it sounds like, aren't I just being a better plow horse? It's like, no, man. It's like, we already know what you have to do. Your wife is completely valueless. She doesn't sleep with you. You're essentially going to ditch her unless she acts better. But I can tell a guy that, but he won't listen. He's too invested. He's got all his little, mental obstacles in the way. But if you make him work his ass off to put his life at exactly where you want it to be, eventually there's going to be that moment where he sits there, he's doing the dishes while the girl's gaining another 20 pounds by eating a jar of mayonnaise, going, why in the F am I leaving her in this stupid house? Like, you know what I mean? It's like I'm sure you've done your like 80, 90-hour work weeks where you're just swamped. And there's always that one coworker who's just kind of goofing off and slacking off and doing the bare minimum. And essentially you just kind of look around. It's like, why is he on this team? Same thing.
Yeah, I think most people fall for this idea because there's an idea that, oh, when you're in a relationship, especially when you get married, then two become one. No, you're still two. Trust me. And you both have agency in your own lives. So if your wife won't sleep with you, you have two options. You can keep asking her to sleep with you, or you can go do something else, hopefully something productive. And as you do more productive things, you get better at self-care. At some point, you just get to the point like, I could do better than that bitch.
Yeah. And the only way you get there is by like some kind of suffering or pain. Now, obviously, if she's lazy and she cheats on you with like your brother or something like that, that's a way of getting zeroed out. Great pain to get you started on that path. But sometimes girls are just crap, but they don't give you a reason to do something about it. They're just they found out exactly how shitty they could be and not cross that threshold. And for that, you've just got to take it yourself. You got to just raise the bar of where your threshold is. And you got to do it slowly. And you have to do it more than you would have to because you're such a stubborn asshole. You don't even think about it that way. Maybe you have to work yourself to the bone. Maybe you essentially have to be a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, earn all the money, spend all the things. But whatever way you can to manufacture that zeroed out process, I've never found a better way to do it. It just has to come through pain. At least this way, you're manufacturing the pain as opposed to just like inviting a bull over to the house to cheat on her or to cheat on you with her or having her sleep with your brother or coworker. Because those are the ones that end up guys haven't put guns in their mouths or take like a long nap in the garage with the car idling. Those aren't good. Do you like my euphemisms for suicide, by the way?
Don't get me started. I almost committed suicide earlier today.
What? Oh, accident or on purpose?
No, on purpose.
Why would you do that?
I had like 6 14-year-old girls sit right behind me for like a 20-minute public transport ride talking about from a reality show.
Oh, dude, you had me there for a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. Why'd you just drop that bomb? I'm like, oh, thank God for the punchline.
Well, it would have been a murder-suicide thing, but I figured my revolver only had 6 bullets and I'm not going to jail.
Maybe if they stand in a lineup, you can pull like that Indiana Jones thing. Girls, could you just... Yeah, it's good. It'll be for your Instagram photo. Trust me.
Can you get a little bit closer, please?
Why are you wearing his dark trench coat? Don't worry about it. I did this for Marilyn Manson and Doom and Quake. Let's go. Oh, hey, speaking of which, I was thinking of this one too. Like, this is a little bit off topic, but you're the only guy I can talk to about this who will understand what I'm saying. So you know how like racism and the social justice thing and that nonsense has been going on for a while now, right?
Yeah.
I've noticed especially with the cuties thing, like the other side of the equation, like henpecked soccer moms calling every guy like a pedo, is starting to well up now. Like all these guys that were all about free speech before, now they found their own pet project to show that it wasn't about free speech. They just wanted to be the one to put the boot on the neck. I'm wondering, I think we might be having like a social change now to move from the SJW side to that old Christian degeneracy speech side of things again. I think we've hit our turning point. I don't know what caused it, but maybe it's those protests. Are you seeing this too, or am I just being too weird?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be... I talked about Troy with this one because we were talking about the sexual marketplace and how you kind of go from liberal to conservative to liberal to conservative.
Yeah.
And I think this is a similar thing, but I think this time it's going to be kind of unique because you're going to have like the crazy SJWs on one side and the crazy ass conservatives on the other.
Right.
And I kind of hope that they all kill each other.
That would be nice, but that's the problem is they're going to take a whole lot of like reasonable middle people out with them.
Yeah, but we're overpopulating this planet anyway, man.
Survival of the fittest. Wish yourselves luck, guys.
No, but I kind of get what they're saying with the whole cuties thing.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing with like it's just authoritarianism. That's why I love that old Sargon of Akkad animation with like feminists and Islamists.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Because it's the same behaviors on both sides. It's just a different, like on the left, you can never be racist, you can never be like aggressive with women. On the right, it's like save our children, don't talk down to God. And like it or not, like the main difference between like hardcore Islamists and evangelicals is that the hardcore Islamists still have state power.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because
the Christian, one other difference too, the evangelical types, they kind of have like a soft Sharia law. Like they want the girl to opt in. When in Islam, they're like, no, you're just, like you said, state power. It's like, no, you will do this. So I give Islam's like one step up. At least then they aren't expecting the girl to actually think a certain way. They're like, no, just act right.
So I think with those Christians, we have the same behaviors, and they were just as bad back in the day when they had power.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, a bunch of Frenchmen killed a fuck ton of Catholics, plus a lot of noble people, and kind of fixed that problem.
Thank God for the French. Who thought I'd be saying that term? I'm surprised. I thought you were going to go into like an Austrian painting scene reference there. I'm actually pleasantly surprised you went to the French artisan bakery scene.
No, it's not quite. We're not at a beer hall yet, man. But I do actually think if you're looking to become an interesting conversationalist, just to do like we're getting close to like the last half hour or something of the stream anyway.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot about becoming an interesting person because I think that's a kind of a prerequisite for being the kind of person who has a social circle that it can actually game.
Yeah. Something valuable you offer to a social circle for sure.
Like you have that basic level of decency, of empathy, of, knowing that you can't just stand on a table screaming, I'm great, fuck you, we're having hot dogs for dinner. That's like I
actually the Queen reference here.
Funnily enough, like I didn't see that parallel until now for some strange reason. But if you look at the way like the hyper alpha behavior and the behavior of like a 5-year-old kid who's being told he can't have ice cream for breakfast, they kind of mirror each other because the kid is throwing up a hard boundary. They are enforcing the boundary and they're trying to inflict their will upon other people. They just don't have
disregard for everything else other than that.
And a lot of the time, like I rarely get into like online beef. Not because I don't like enforcing boundaries and telling people off, just because I don't think it's worth it most of the time.
Right.
Like JC has this great line like, don't argue with fools because people from a distance can tell who is who.
I like that one. That's clever.
And you kind of, if you argue with an idiot, you become an idiot and you're kind of conceding that there's an argument to be had. And if they just dial up the aggression or dial up the stupidity to the point where it exhausts you, you'll just get out of the discussion and they'll be like, yeah, I'm a winner now. And if you let that bother you, you'll just sit on the online arguing all day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what difference is it between that and the wife that if she nags hard enough, you'll break her phone to teach her a lesson? It's like you're literally letting other people decide how you live your life. It's just like we've been saying this entire 2 hours.
So, where was I before I went out on that diatribe?
I don't know, but everybody else in the chat here is talking about Austria.
Oh yeah, becoming more. The more things you know, the more things you can talk about, the more stories you have, the more interesting you are, the more people will want to invite you over if you can actually have a conversation, not totally dominate. Because no one likes the guy who dominates the conversation, but nobody thinks to invite the guy who never says anything.
Right. Yeah, augment, direct. Sometimes you have to carry a conversation. That's fine. But that's the thing. But then the awareness to know the difference when you need to dominate a conversation because everybody's an introvert with nothing to say. When somebody's telling the great story and everybody's enjoying it and they just need you to like laugh along to give it that extra oomph or what? That just comes
not like always trying to be that. Like that was one thing with me was like always trying to one up people. I'm still working on that one.
Yeah, that's common. I do the same thing. But you're probably like me. And that's kind of like the fallback. If you have done interesting things, the one up thing, in your head, it seems like you're just like, oh yeah, me too. We both did it. But then you're right. You have to be aware like, oh, this could be looking like a one-up thing. And that's my problem too.
So it's just a matter of working on it. But the more, and I'm a big advocate of being the Renaissance man, because I actually do think that's more impressive than, because that's also more surprising to a girl, because there are more layers to you.
Yeah.
If you're the guy who's obsessed with collecting batteries, okay, maybe your battery collection will be interesting for a moment, but that was a good one.
I know. This is the one that murdered me too, I think, on the game.
Probably.
That's the stream sniper. He's sniping me on chat too. Son of a bitch.
Okay. Well, you know what? Professors always end up dating one of their students a lot of the time, because those students will think it's impressive that the professor knows so much more about something they're also deeply interested in.
Yeah.
But if you collect batteries, or you study batteries or whatever, that's the only thing you're interested in, you're going to narrow your own dating market quite a lot. The broader you are, like I had to do that when I was doing like those 50 first dates. I had to sit down and watch some reality and catch up on some gossip shit.
Right.
Just to have that in order to be able to bridge the conversation with the girls and get the references.
Yeah. Sports highlights, same thing. A lot of guys talked about sports at my work, so I just like learned the broad strokes. So at least then I could sit in a conversation.
Yeah, and it's also more fun to understand. I think that it's kind of interesting when you're talking to someone and you're like, okay, this person knows a lot of shit, and then suddenly you find out, oh shit, they also know like 3 languages and stuff.
Yeah.
So I always found that kind of impressive, and I think that's what you should go for. Download Among Us, yeah. So I should stream snipe Ryan. That would be epic.
Oh, dude, you brutal man. It's on phone too. It's like $5. It's whatever. I don't know. It's really fun. It's like, it reminds me of the old days when I used to play Risk with my Navy buddies. We'd sit there, play Risk, get drunk. And my one friend, Chris, without a doubt, he was always persuasive enough. He would convince everybody else to whittle themselves down by fighting me. And then he would just walk in at the end and take over everything. But he did that every time. And I got so mad. I'm like, how do you guys not see this? He's done it 7 times in a row. But every time, like, no, this one's different. This time he really means it. You're coming to get me and I'm going to get you. I was like, that's when I realized, like, and he's the guy now who has like the family. They look like they belong on the photograph in the picture frame that you buy at the store. Like, you know, you have that generic perfect family in there. That's his family. And I'm like, I get it now. I get why he's crushing it in the workplace right now. He's just got that Bronze Age mindset, handsome Dan Thursday thing. I'm like, my job is to be second in command for that guy's army.
Yeah, we had that going with a friend group I was hanging a lot with in high school or something, where our friends group actually broke up over Risk.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
We played so much Risk, and over time, everyone had backstabbed each other so much that there was just no trust left in those friendships.
Dude, my brother would be so proud of that. That was our goal when we were playing games as kids. It wasn't that you had to beat the other guy. You had to make him quit the game forever. But that just takes it to a whole new level. No. If they invite you back, you haven't won yet. Oh, that's a perfect note to end this one on then. All right. I just noticed too, a lot of people don't know who you are on this one, which is kind of nice. That means we're reaching new people. So you don't mind if I fluff you for a minute here while we end this off?
No, go.
All right. So if you guys don't know, Black Label Logic has a website, blacklabellogic.com. Was it like 200 articles, 2,000 words a piece, basically as close as you can get to dating, sexual marketplace, and economics, tying them all together. Super awesome read. He's also got 2 books, Gendernomics Part 1 and Part 2, with a 3rd book I hear coming out sooner rather than later. Those are both on Amazon. And Jack Napier, the guy in the chat, actually did up audiobooks for those. So check through his profile. And again, always follow Carl on Twitter. Same handle here, the Black Label Logic. And that's easy enough. On that note, I guess, so half an hour.
I set myself a new writing goal.
Ooh.
I want to get my book 4 out before Rolo gets his book 4 out.
Oh, I thought you were going to set a goal. That's an inevitability. I'll get my 2nd book out before he does, and I just released book 1.
No, get your 4th out before his 4th. Go.
Dude, that'd be hilarious. All right, definitely going to make it happen, though. Anyways, guys, Rule 0 on this channel, half an hour. I don't know if Carl's going to make it or not. I wouldn't ask. We'll just see what happens. I'll catch you guys later.